Ladies and gentlemen, it is now properly PC gaming season. We've just had the launch of Battlefield 6, there's loads of exciting titles, and now is the best time pretty much we've ever had. Alright, maybe that's a little bit of exaggeration, but it's a great time to get into PC gaming, and throughout this video we're going to go through the very best PC gaming builds that you can build right now to help you find the perfect gaming PC for you. And as always, I think the best place to start is going to be at the budget end of things, and we're going to browse over in the States at Newegg, but don't forget that all of our global affiliate links will be listed down below, so if you're watching this in the UK, don't worry, we've got you covered, and vice versa when we look at our mid-range and that's priced in the UK, you guessed it, the links for USA are linked down below too. And to properly kick off our budget build, I first want to have a look at CPUs, because these are the things that are actually changing all of the time. It used to be that you could get like a Core i3 or an i5 really cheap, and that was a great little base station. Obviously, budget means different things to different people. Are you going after the cheapest possible gaming PC, or are you after something you spend a little bit more on, but it's more budget friendly, but it's still going to last? Those are the decisions ultimately you have to decide for yourself. But just to give you an idea, if you're looking at an up-to-date budget-friendly build, then you are going to be looking at a Ryzen 5, and the cheapest it goes down to, look, is $205 for a 9600X, which is regarded as pretty much the best value gaming CPU right now. But if you do want to go for something a little bit cheaper, you can get the last generation of 7600X for $180, or go even further back to AM4, and you'll start to see the prices dwindle a fair bit. I mean, this one, look, $87, but obviously it's worth bearing in mind that the performance of this is so much worse than something like a 7600X. The one that I've got my eyes on though does actually appear, and it's this. It's a Ryzen 5 7500F. You can get this slightly cheaper, I think, from somewhere like AliExpress. You maybe save like $20, $30 or so. But this was supposed to be an OEM chip only, which essentially means that you can buy it in a pre-built PC and they're not going to sell it separately. But on Newegg, they do seem to have it. Is it from a third party? Yes, from Centric, but you've got a few other sellers here. $145.99, that's not a bad price. Out of interest though, what happens if we go for Intel? The cheapest way of doing this, and it absolutely can be done, would be to go for one of these, which is an i3 14100F, but this is only a 4-core CPU, so this is absolutely going to struggle in the latest and greatest. I mean, something like Battlefield 6, for instance, I imagine this probably isn't going to be fantastic, and it is something you'll have to upgrade fairly promptly. And the issue with that as well is that because you'd be running on a previous generation motherboard, you've not got that many options, or not that many new options. You can quite easily whack like an i5 and i7 in, which will be fantastic, but you won't be able to do what you'd be able to do with AM5, which is like wait a year or two and then get whatever the latest release from AMD is. So definitely consider that if you are trying to save as much money as possible. Or if you want to be more up to date, you can have a look at the Core Ultra 5, and you can see the prices on these are definitely starting to come down a fair bit. That's mainly because the gaming performance of this compared to AMD's best isn't really where it needs to be, but I have seen some insane deals, especially around Prime Day, so I imagine Black Friday will be the same on the Ultra 5 245K. So if you can find this for under £200, under $200, it is going to be worth considering, as long as you are, again, kind of aware that the chances of having like a drop-in upgrade in a couple of years' time is very unlikely. You might get a refresh, but that's probably a lot. So let's stick with our 7500F and let's add this to the basket. And then I think we can proceed to have a look at our graphics cards. And again, this is a very interesting point here, because we've literally just made a video all about this specific sector, if you like, of GPUs. And to be honest, your choice isn't really that easy, because I think the people's favorite is going to be the B580. This has 12 gigabytes of VRAM, so it's very future-proof in terms of having higher settings and the ability to put more things in memory. But then it's let down by the fact that the actual performance of it, while still great for the money, isn't actually as good as something like the RTX 5060 or 5050 in a fair few games. And I can already like hear the pitchforks saying, no, those are 8 gigabyte cards, don't recommend those. It's tricky because it all depends ultimately what it is that you want out of your gaming PC. And if you're someone that wants to have loads of VRAM, fantastic, but actually for what most people are probably going to play, you may well find that a 5050 or a 5060 is going to be a better bet. Hopefully edited cards overlaid loads of like the side-by-side so you can see what I mean. But let's have a look at pricing, because obviously we can't decide till we've seen that. Let's start with our 5050, and over in the States you're looking at about $250 or so. So this is pretty much RRP, and I have a feeling that a lot of the other graphics cards aren't going to be at RRP. The 5060, surprisingly, is around about $300 as well, so 50 more for a fair bit more performance, but again, kind of depends what it is that you're after. Whereas our good old friend, the Arc B580, is coming in at actually about the same, $250 or so. So I think, personally speaking, if I had the choice between a 5050 and a 5080, I would actually go for the B580, but it, again, purely depends what you play. If you mainly just like play one multiplayer game, so something like Counter-Strike, it doesn't need the extra VRAM, and it is just going to be significantly faster on the Nvidia card. That clearly is going to be the way to go. But both of these are good options. We'll leave both of them linked down below, but I think we're going to go with our B580 today. Also worth noting as well that you can get a cheaper B570 look, and as you can see, that will save yourself a fair bit of cash, about $220 or so. But be aware that this obviously is less powerful and has 10 gigabytes of VRAM rather than 12, but I still think that this is going to be a fantastic choice, again, if you're just looking to save money. Obviously, we're going to need a motherboard though for our CPU and GPU to actually slot into, so let's have a look. I don't think any of these are particularly budget friendly, so let's filter this to AM5, we'll go for B850, and then let's have a look what we have. I mean, if you want to go for a whiteboard, I think this looks absolutely fantastic. We're seeing a lot more of those, which is cool, but I think let's sort this from low to high to have a look more at the deals. Cheaper boards obviously are going to have weaker VRMs, so you're not going to be able to accommodate so much power going into your CPU, but it shouldn't be an issue with the one we have. So I mean, I think the best cheaper one is this one at around about $155, which is the B850 Eagle. I mean, if it was me, I would actually consider this, which is open box, which doesn't necessarily come with, as I say, the full warranties and things. It kind of depends on the exact product and whether it's been used. But assuming you get hold of it and obviously it works properly, for $120, this is going to save yourself a fair bit of money. You've got better cooling on the VRMs. You don't have any like SSD heat sinks here. So if you're going to go for something high end, make sure it's got one pre-attached essentially. But I think this is a good option. So let's add this to our basket. Once you've sourced your board, of course, you're then going to need to grab yourself a CPU cooler. And I filtered this really to the cheap section between about $20 and $35. You can see most of them are quite similar in terms of size. Obviously the performance is going to vary, but also so is things like color, RGB, and then physical size. Make sure you're getting one that has a full 120mm fan, unless you're going for a small enclosure, and double check the dimensions of your case, obviously, to make sure that it will fit in. But I think the one I personally would look at here would probably be this one, which is a Hyper 212 Spectrum V3. It's actually available for $20, which is pretty absurd really. And as you can see, you don't get like the full black coloring, but you do get that 120mm RGB fan as well. Looks good to me. Let's add this to the basket. Haven't used this exact one, but I've been using Hyper 212s for years. Not sure why they need so many SKUs. Then we're going to want to go in and grab ourselves an SSD. Let's look between 50 and 65. Make sure it's the right form factor, capacity, and PCI Gen 4. And actually we can probably select the speeds as well. And then that gives us these two options. So here we are, KingSpec XG7000, currently available for $61. And in terms of the read-write speeds, 7300, 6400, so very, very quick, especially for the money. Boom. Let's now browse our memory, DDR5, 32 gig, CL30, dual channel. And when we filter this from low to high, actually, memory seems to be going up, which is a bit annoying. I mean, actually, the cheapest option, it's white, but I still think will look pretty good, is this one, and it has both XMP and Expo apparently. So let's add this, and then just double check the prices of everything else. Wow, I did not realize this was going this way. Look, this is usually about $110, and they're $170. Get your memory whilst you can. If you do specifically want a kit with RGB though, and you want it black, this is probably the best option. It's CL32, but otherwise, pretty much good on all fronts. We're almost there though, only a couple of pieces left to go, and the case is of course going to be a big one. Is that really how much a frame 4000D is at the moment? Oh no, you get a PSU included. That's not actually too bad, you know, $180. That's definitely not cheap. I wouldn't suggest it for this kind of budget-friendly build, but maybe for our mid-range, that's worth considering. That's a very good deal. Let's look between $45 and $65 though. Is there anything that really stands out? Montech Air 903, no RGB, but that's probably quite cool if you want something big. Phanteks XT Pro, I do like that. We've built with this before, but we did the one with loads of RGB. This looks like a blackout case. $20 for RGB, look. Or actually, what about this? The G370A. I think I've seen this, but not built on this exact one. This is definitely going to be a little bit cheaper, but Phanteks do a very good job, generally speaking, on cheaper cases. It's full-size ATX, and it does actually come with RGB fans as standard. So I think this is a no-brainer, and it actually comes in at $40 after a rebate, apparently. So if you're in the States and you want a case, this is definitely a strong one to consider. And you've obviously got loads of airflow on the front as well because it's mesh. You should be able to grow into this. So yeah, this is a no-brainer. Let's add this one. And then of course, finally, we're gonna need to grab ourselves a power supply. And we've got the deal section up here to see if we can find something. Already I've seen this, the CX650M from Corsair for $65. That's probably a very good shout. If you wanted something higher end, obviously you could look at MSI, but that's way more. Usually we go for this one, but I'd much rather actually have the Corsair. So I think that is a bit of a no-brainer. Also consider this one because it's 750 watts. It's worth noting that this Corsair is a semi-modular power supply, which means that essentially all of the cables that you definitely need are attached, and then all of the optional ones are just that, and they come separately in the box. But as long as your graphics card obviously supports this, so your minimum power supply essentially, it was in the realms and capability of this, you'll be fine. So I think this is a no-brainer. Let's add this to the basket. And then ladies and gentlemen, I think this is the big moment, and I know that this is probably not the most budget-friendly one we've ever done on the channel. If you are thinking that that's outrageous, hit this video at the top right corner of your screen where we actually built the cheapest new gaming PC we probably could. And it was very cheap and it had some compromises, but that might interest you. But otherwise, if you want what I think is the best all-round option right now at the budget end, you are looking at a decent chunk of change, $825 or just under, plus obviously any like applicable taxes and things. So not cheap, but this is ultimately something that is going to last you a very long time. We've literally just reviewed the Xbox, the ROG Xbox Ally X, and the price of that is more expensive than this whole gaming PC. So if you look at it like that, it is a no-brainer, and obviously it is a full gaming PC, so you can use it as a PC, you can do work on it, you can replace your laptop, and if you don't have to buy a laptop, well, it's saving you a whole bunch of money. And of course, being a regular PC build channel, we can show you what the gameplay of this should roughly be like, as we've actually done a few similar systems. If you want to see a full review or full build with this, you can find it in the top right corner of your screen and obviously see more benchmarks and how easy or difficult it is to build a gaming PC. Hang on, what's that smell, everyone? Is that our mid-range PC that's just coming up? After a short word from this video's sponsor. And it's a nice smell, it doesn't stink. Haven's brand new case and fans have arrived to provide stunning looks, solid construction, and awesome performance. The Haven BF360 is one of the best looking cases on the market, hands down, with its carefully crafted front grille standing loud and proud and providing masses of airflow to your components. It's available in both black or white, and you can fit ginormous GPUs up to 410mm long, E80X motherboards, massive radiators at the front and top, and accessing all of the panels is quick and easy for a seamless PC build. This is complemented by the huge 180mm fans with an ultra-thick frame, providing that seemingly impossible combination of massive performance and low noise. Everything here is built for those who are serious about their gaming rig. The great news is these H18 fans are available standalone or as part of the chassis, so if you either want a case that oozes luxury or just some thick boy fans, you can check everything out with a link down below. Ah yes, isn't it great to be back? And isn't it great to be back with our mid-range? And with this one, we've pretty much got two main options for the GPU. The RTX 5060 Ti 16GB. The price on this hasn't really changed since the last time we did it. You can get this for just under £400, look, so 390. This is not obviously going to be as powerful as a 5070, but it actually has more VRAM, so I think for a lot of people, you're going to feel more confident with this, and it's going to mean that games in the future, if they've got like really high-end textures and things, you should be able to fit them in there. But once again, same with like the B580 versus the 5050 and the 5060. If you're specifically playing multiplayer games, I mean things like Battlefield, to be honest, where you know everything should fit within that 8GB buffer, it may well be more sensible to go for a 5070. I mean, I should specify actually the 5070 is a 12GB card, so Battlefield will definitely fit in that, but obviously it's still more money. But let's put this to one side for a second, because the other option, and hopefully the cheaper option, is the RX 9060 XT. And this one, as you can see, actually comes with 16GB of VRAM. And when you can get this for around about £330, I think this does make a whole bunch of sense. Once again, it's not as powerful as something like even the 5060 Ti 16GB, but in terms of bang for buck, it should give you much, much better value. So it kind of, again, depends how much you want to spend. I think we are going to go with this, but if you wanted those specific NVIDIA features, so you wanted the better DLSS, you wanted the frame generation, which sometimes is great, sometimes not quite so great, I think the NVIDIA card is definitely going to be the better product, but for the price, I think it's very hard to ignore this. So let's add this to our basket. Then of course it's a case of looking at our CPUs or our processors, and these are the main two that I would strongly consider, your 9600X and your 9700X. One is a 6-core, one is an 8-core. For gaming specifically, go for the 9600X, and if you think, no, I should be spending more money, instead go up to that 5060 Ti 16 gig, because that will give you better frame rates really across the board. You're very unlikely to find that the 9700X is going to give you a way better frame rate unless you're specifically playing like really light multiplayer titles that you know are going to be CPU bound. So obviously scale this depending on what you're going for, but I think for most people I would go for the 9600X, which is what we're going to do. But if you're going to go for a higher end GPU, this is when you're going to want to step up to this. So let's add this to our basket. Then we can look at AMD motherboards. Once again, we'll look at B850, and it's quite nice actually that we do have a little bit more budget to spend, so we don't have to go for something dirt cheap, but we can still sort this from low to high. Our target price is about 150, 160, so again, you could go for something like the Eagle look, or we could go for this. B850 Gaming Plus. I think this looks like a hospital. This is what I told MSI when I first saw it, and I don't think they were too pleased. But tell me that doesn't look medical, but it's certainly different. Not the most high-end board, but obviously you've got a little bit extra cooling on the top there. Should be a decent amount of ports. It does support PCI Generation 5, and you do have a heatsink, though I would guess that's probably a single-sided, not a double-sided, but should be good for what we need, and obviously is full-size ATX as well, supporting AM5 processors, hopefully 4 years to come. So let's add that one in, and it's actually making us a suggestion, look, of a LAN called 216 or this 215 that is massively on sale, look. 60 quid for that, absolute bargain. 200mm fans on the front of that. Well, we're doing that. I think we're after something similar in terms of SSD as well. Can we get around about like the 70, 80 pound mark? 530R, 80 quid, not bad. I think storage is going up as well, you know. Yeah, look, filtering it by price, there's really not many options. You've got a P310 for 61. Although, I mean, the speeds on that actually aren't too bad. But personally, I'd probably go for this T500 1TB, just because it's got a faster read-write speed. And if the P3 is anything like the old P3 Plus, I found actually that kind of didn't have the sustained performance that I wanted it to have, and it's not really that much more. Let's move on now and have a look what the damage is when it comes to memory over in the UK. Has this also gone through the roof? 6,000 megahertz, CL30, low to high, and yeah, look, there it is. Memory is going up a lot. This has happened quite quickly, actually. I can't say I really even noticed this happening, but yeah, you're looking at 50% more for your kit of memory now. I mean, it's great that if you've got an older system that also was DDR5, obviously you can carry that across. Memory does last a long time, but you're kind of stuck. If you need RAM, you've got to buy RAM. Let's remember, of course, that we are going for a white system though, so let's go for this white kit. As we're going for a 9000 series Ryzen CPU, it doesn't actually come with a CPU cooler, so once again, we're going to need to grab one. This is my personal favorite in terms of like price to performance. We've used this so many times on the channel. I have actually ordered some others so we can do some more comparisons really, but there's not really anything I would change about this except making the cables slightly smaller. You can see it's full RGB. It's much bigger than the one we had in our budget-friendly rig, which was the Hyper 212, and it comes with 2 fans as well rather than 1. So really happy with this. Price is great, so let's add this to the basket for 37. And then last, but certainly not least, let's see if we can grab ourselves a white power supply. Not sure how easy this is going to be. We're once again looking at about a 650 or a 750, but it does look like the cheapest option is this one from Fantex, look, for £95. 750, good looking unit, and it's rated gold for efficiency. So let's add this one to our basket. Also comes with PCI Generation 5.1, which is good. And then, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll please for the price total, which comes in at £1,120, which actually I think is very, very reasonable. The downside, the memory, as I say, has gone up by 50%, so you're looking at £50 more. But then everything else seems to have come down essentially from if you're buying this a year ago. We're saving a lot of money on things like the case, CPUs got cheaper, so don't be too put off, to be honest, because it's not the end of the world at the moment. And what you're getting is fantastic. I mean, it's an all-white rig, so it's going to look phenomenal. Obviously, you've got loads of performance today and into the future because it's very easy to upgrade. You should just be able to pretty much drop anything in. And I also think this is going to be an absolutely fantastic gaming PC when it comes to value for money, because despite the fact that you are paying more for that memory, it's kind of in that sweet spot, really. The more money you spend from this point onwards, the kind of less not the less you're getting in return, but the less value you're getting in return as you kind of go up the stack. Obviously, all the way to a 5090, which does not represent great value for money. But we'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know down in the comment section below. And again, pricing is actually down in the comments as well. But let's now move on to everyone's favorite, which has to be the high-end behemoth. I need a better thesaurus. What's another word for behemoth?
gargantuous PC.
And the real question is, how expensive do we go? Has the 5090 come down in the States? No. No, it has not. So instead, maybe we should have a look at a 5080 rig, and obviously if you did want to swap this out for a 5090, you can do that. You will get more performance, but I think for most people, a 5080 is going to be more than sufficient. I mean, at least this is technically at the RRP. It's meant to be $1,000, and you can get a couple that are there. So you can get the Zotac Solid or the Gigabyte WindForce. I'd probably go for the WindForce, actually. So let's start with this and add this to our basket. It should probably come as no surprise that in terms of CPUs, we obviously want the best one for gaming, which is the Ryzen 7 9800X3D. This is coming in at $460, which is a fair bit less than it was a year ago, but it's still like the price that it's supposed to be, essentially. It's worth noting that if you did want to save yourself some money, you absolutely can step down to something like last year's or a few years ago, 7800X3D, if you can get that in the sale. That's actually what I use on both my personal PCs with a 4090 and a 5090 respectively, and they still work great in Battlefield. I've got no issues. Or obviously, if you wanted to go for something that was a bit cheaper, you could also get the Intel Core Ultra 7, which is not the absolute best for gaming, but if you're just trying to create a rig that's kind of like an all-round gaming PC that you also use for productivity, you'll find that that's probably going to be a fair bit cheaper, but that doesn't have the same performance and ultimately isn't as upgradable. So we'd recommend Ryzen. And interestingly, actually, they've got some combo deals here. Are either of these actually going to be worth it? Save $50 on a B850M. I don't really want the M. What if we wanted a higher end motherboard? I mean, that's very expensive. We're basically getting $600 off. Well, we are going for the high-end rig, so let's do this. But to be clear, if you wanted to go for a B850 and save money, that's still what I would do if you're primarily doing this for gaming. But a lot of people, when they're building a rig, especially at this price, they want the highest end motherboard features. They want to do things like overclocking. They want to have like the most stable RAM speeds. They want loads of PCI Generation 5 SSD support, and they want something that they know is going to be great for like 5-6 years and still not really miss out on features. If that's you and you want the best I/O possible, fastest Wi-Fi, all of these things, spend more money on your motherboard. But if you're purely focusing on getting the highest frame rates possible for the lowest amount of cost, that's when B850 pretty much comes in spades. That's the phrase. In terms of cooling, I want something that's going to be a little bit more attractive this time, so let's go for a 360 all-in-one. Going to be super quiet. These are actually pretty good. I've used these quite a few times. They're the IQ Link Titans, and this is one that actually has an LCD as well. So again, in terms of value for money, you could absolutely spend about $100 less on this for something similar in terms of performance. But if you want that LCD, you want the IQ Link system essentially, which is great because it just means that all your fans just connect with one cable to each other. And then it's just so much cleaner and so much actually easier to operate and so much easier to build. But if you're getting someone else to build it for you, it doesn't really matter anyway. But let's add this. And then actually whilst we're there, let's go and have a look at that deal again. Remember what we saw earlier? 4000D, RM850, $180. Or they've also got one here, look. If you did want to go for the 5090, where you could get that same thing, but with a 1000D. But as I say, we're going for a 5080, so we don't need this, and we are going to add this to the basket purely because I think for most people and what they're actually after, it's pretty much like a great all-round case. It's way bigger than the original 4000, so it fits those larger size graphics cards in it, which is great. Airflow's nice, design's fantastic, and I did have a few issues with my early review sample because like 2 of the panels were a little bit thin, but I believe that these have been looked at and rectified with kind of rolling updates over the last year or so. So hopefully you won't have the same issues that I ran into. I haven't actually heard this from other people, so maybe it was just my unit, but it definitely is something to know. Loads of great cases if you wanted something different. Let's press on and have a look at our memory though, shall we? This time we're going to look at 48 gig, CL30, and in terms of options, not masses. I think we're going to have to go with a Corsair kit, although this would make sense anyway, because obviously it all kind of light up and work with IQ. 235, so you used to be able to get this for about $150 to $170 or so, so definitely on the up. In terms of storage, once you start looking at something super high-end, I usually revolve around either a Samsung 990 Pro, despite the fact that this isn't PCI Generation 5. Even on like a top-end gaming system, it's still not come down to the price where I think it's easy to recommend for everyone, because it's going to make basically no real-world difference to anyone unless you're specifically hammering their SSD with specific tasks. So I'd probably look at a 990 Pro for about 160 or so. But if you wanted to go for like a KC3000, the FireCuda 530R, anything like that, those have also been very good options over the last couple of years or so. Of course, to get this system looking as good as possible and to perform as well as possible, we are going to have to add extra fans. So here we're going to add an extra pack of RX 120s for the front, and then we're also going to add a single RX 120 on the rear. It's worth noting though that you can add 3 extra fans at the side if you want want even more airflow. Don't think this is going to be necessary, but if you want it to look better and have slightly better thermals and things, obviously you can do that, but it'll cost you $90 or so. And it's also worth noting that some variants of the case actually come with some RS RGB fans as standard, which I actually wouldn't recommend if you're going to add extras, because then you've got two different ecosystems going on, where the whole point, of course, their link is that it's really nice and straightforward with just one cable essentially going to each chain of fans. Annoyingly though, it doesn't actually tell us in this bundle whether you get fans or not, and I asked the AI chatbot and it said,
I don't know.
Which is really helpful. Let's move on to the final piece of the puzzle, which is the price, because everything else has been added. $2,693.90 plus, again, any applicable taxes. So definitely not cheap. This is one of the most expensive gaming PCs you can do. Nothing in here, bar maybe those RGB fans, are extras. If you are looking just to build a top-end, really powerful gaming PC, everything here basically is necessary. We need a large case with good airflow. We need the graphics card, need a high-end CPU, SSD, RAM. Okay, we've gone a little bit overboard on like an LCD cooler and extra fans and things, but I think if you're spending this much money, you want something that's very configurable, that obviously something looks absolutely fantastic as well. But crucially, if you go for this, you're gonna get super high-end frame rates, even at 4K resolution. Granted, you're gonna have to use some DLSS super resolution to get there in certain titles, especially if you're gonna use ray tracing, and definitely if you're gonna use path tracing. But the point is, there's not really anything that this can't handle, whether it's single player, multi, anything really. And obviously you've got all of those NVIDIA technologies. So you're going to absolutely love this thing. And if you do want to check out current pricing when you're watching this, as always, you can find it listed down below in the description or as a pinned comment. But let us know your thoughts on these. What rigs were your favorites? What would you change? What have I got completely wrong? Or what have I got right? And if you do want to check out a video all about how to build a gaming PC as clearly and quickly as possible, I've made a guide all about this. You can find this in the end screen. But thanks for watching. Smash the like button, get subscribed. We'll catch you in the next one.